Maestro Alan Gilbert, welcome back. Magnus Lindberg, Tervetuloa, how do you say that? Tervetuloa, welcome back to the Philharmonie.
Thank you.
We are sitting here on the main stage surrounded by instruments, by metal scrap, by aluminium foil, water and buckets to play your piece Kraft. And it's been quite a week rehearsing all these special effects. But the most impressive thing, I think, is that this is the first performance in Berlin of a piece that you composed in Berlin.
Yeah, Kraft is coming home. I'm very proud of that. I was living here in Berlin in 1984, 1985, working on this project which initially was meant to be a piano concerto. And I went to various places in town and heard.
Various places, they were bars and nightclubs, right?
Yes. But also they had all the alternative scene with special, really an entirely different sound world of noise that I hadn't heard before, and I felt that why couldn't we do something like this, more vivid, more urban in a way.
When you say noise, you were listening to punk groups, or I read what they called Einstürzende Neubauten. How do you translate that into English?
But that was the band.
It's the name of the band. Yeah.
They
still existing. It's a great group.
New buildings falling down,
yes.
Or how would you translate
yeah.
that? And you heard them in Berlin.
I heard them plenty of times here, and really got jealous with the kind of sounds they were producing. And from having started a project that was meant to be a piano concerto, I gradually started to enlarge it and ended up with something that is quite far away from a classical piano concerto.
There's still some very big piano solo parts in here, aren't there?
I think this is an incredible piece. I've had the good fortune to be able to perform it a couple of times, and you need enormous forces and incredible logistical organization. So it's not a given that you can mount a piece like this, and here this is the third time I'm doing it. What I love about this piece is it takes kind of urban sounds that you might hear walking down the street in a city
you
like
have to
Berlin.
Look at all the stuff.
I mean, you just
that's
look,
here,
and that's the point. Magnus wants junk taken from junkyards in the city where the performance is happening. So it really is from that environment, that location. But there've been other composers who take these sounds and make music out of it, point out the fact that actually if you just open your ears when you walk down the street, that becomes music. But what I think, if I may say so, and you can tell me how you composed it, but what you've done is you've bridged the gap that can exist between just noise and art music that's written down in an incredibly seamless way. So you take these sounds, but there's a very clear structure, and there's a very evident use of classical technique and orchestration, and it's a piece that you have to see because it's theater, but at the same time it's got this musical logic. It's really you as you experience it, you realize, oh, this is music. And I think it's brilliant.
And experiencing it for you in the Philharmonie, is this how you imagined this piece? Is the space good for it?
I could never have believed that this piece one day will be played here, because this is the
Berlin Philharmoniker.
With Maestro Alan
yes.
Gilbert.
This is the perfect space for this work, because it's, as Alan says, it's all actually about structure. The whole piece comes from structure, and to make the structure vivid, to make it music, I need a maximum of different types of sounds, to have different paths of sound worlds going this way, different paths of sound will go in this way, and they also go special. So things sometimes start from many points in the hall and gradually merge and come together, or we go the other way around. So it's a piece where everything is very precisely organized in terms of time, how time evolves, and also how the space embeds the music. So, of course, on top of this, we have the ritual of it, because it's so, in a way, spectacular, the amount of musicians and instruments we need for putting this together. So it become it becomes.
Alan described it as an
theatre.
event. You did.
Well, it is an
was
event. It is a ritual. But what you do using the space is actually there's this kind of uncanny thing that happens to the sounds. They become almost physicalized, as I think I described to the orchestra. These little sound bits
You called them building, sort of like building blocks. that are
become
moving
like
around.
bricks that
Yeah.
build this building, and you hear a sound here and then you hear it there, but then when you hear it there and there and there, it almost becomes something you can hold or see, and this kind of contact between sound and physicality is I've never seen a piece that actually achieves it in quite this way.
So wherever you're sitting in this hall, you probably have a different. You have to actually hear this piece many times and sit in many different seats to actually get a total feeling for it, because it must sound totally different from there than it sounds over there.
It's really, I think this is really a three-dimensional work. That's what I'm trying to achieve with it, that you are sometimes close to a sound, sometimes you are far away from it, and those together make it such that you belong, you see sound from inside.
So talking about the sounds, Alan's already mentioned that you frequent the metal scrap heaps of the world. Every time your piece is performed, you visit the local metal dump, don't you? And my percussionist told me here that you'd been with them to visit a Berlin scrapyard, and you choose the instruments. For example, there's an old shoe cupboard over there for metal, and you have some things hanging here, an old gas canister and things like that. Is every time you perform the piece, then it has different sounds, because you can't have the same pieces of scrap metal everywhere. How do you choose what to use?
Well, evidently on top of the scrap business, we have the full symphony orchestra, a large orchestra, and we have ordinary percussion instruments. I think we counted the entire list. It's like 250 different percussion instruments in this
And that's
piece.
the biggest gong I've ever seen up there.
It's the biggest gong manufactured in the world.
Really?
There are only two of them.
Oh.
So the ordinary, the standard instruments for symphonic use today, percussion, is all already here. But on top of that, I wanted this world of as we said, the urban sounds, the more dry, metallic things. Because with classical music, we have a beautiful collection of metallic instruments, all the gongs, all the cymbals and so, but they are all ringing instruments, and I wanted more also to include percussion instruments, the drum world with metal. So that brought me to the.
So you walk through a scrap heap with a stick, and you try out all the different sounds. I'd like to come next time.
Yeah, you do.
Did you go with him? When you
I did not. You know, that was one of the things that sort of woke up public interest when we first did it in New York. We produced a video about this, and it was just so, it kind of demystified the whole classical music thing, because here these guys literally walking through trying this, and then they actually created an improvisatory performance there, and this thing, I don't know if it's an exaggeration to say it went viral, but it was an amazing thing. People realized, yeah, music exists everywhere, and you don't need an expensive violin necessarily to create.
And we were on Staten Island doing this.
just before the first rehearsal, because people had gotten their parts and seen, okay, it's a big modern piece. But just before the rehearsal, I watched a few of the violinists walk on stage, and they went past this big pile of metal. There's a car door outside the stage door here. There's a big car door. There's all metal, and people were thinking, oh, there are going to be some special effects going on today. But of course, your piece isn't just the special effects. It's structured. It's in two parts, and we're very happy that Alan has a very important moment. You show us when it starts.
Yeah, of course, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek to hold up this sign that has the number 2 written on it to let people know, okay, now is the second movement. But I think, and seriously, one of the things we try to do, all of us, is to elucidate the form of a piece. Actually, it is very clear musically, but for a first-time listener to have this landmark, this signpost, this actual sign that says, okay, now is the second movement, it creates a moment where you realize, okay, we're probably about halfway through the piece, which is exactly where we are.
Is it in the score? Is something you wanted?
It's a two-movement piece.
No, but the sign
Hold up the
holding.
sign. No, that was
that was
something
your
that came in.
idea?
No, it came from a previous performance, but both because I think it points out that it's not all serious, stiff kind of formality, but also because it is useful to have a sense of where you are in the piece. I think it makes the experience of listening stronger.
Tell us a bit about the structure so that our digital concert audience at home can follow it. They won't be in the hall with us, but they'll be following it via remote cameras, and we have wonderful directors who manage to capture the atmosphere. But explain to us a little bit about the form of the two movements. What can they expect to experience?
I sometimes think about the piece in metaphors of a big bridge, where you have those two big pillars keeping the whole structure together, and somehow craft in a way is done such that definitely the loudest moment of the piece is the very beginning and the very end. So those are in a way keeping the whole structure together. So this is, of course, when you come to craft for the first time as a listener and you hear it starting, it's like a wet towel in your face because the big noise is there. But that's really like the main pillar of the bridge. And then it goes into various areas of sound, and statistically the piece contains more soft music than loud music. It goes occasionally loud, but this was never a purpose just for the sake of it to make it loud. This is all also, I said, it's about timbre, sound and space. It's also about dynamics, about the difference between soft sounds and loud sounds. So I think if you listen to it, keeping in mind that this is a very microscopic world and in the same time a very macroscopic world, those two elements hopefully create a kind of a dichotomy that builds up the piece.
Alan, what is the challenge for you to keep this all together? Because it's a very acrobatic conductor's part, isn't it? You have to conduct left, right, backwards, forwards. It's interactive as well.
Well, I actually get to do my little rap moment, which is always fun. It's actually difficult to do.
What do you actually say there? You have your back to us at that moment, so I couldn't see.
They're phonetics. The phonetic alphabet is written out, so they're very specific sounds that I'm supposed to make in very specific rhythms. And
craft rap.
I've practiced that a lot, and now it gets easier now because I've done it a few times. Again, I just want to bring the piece back to sort of normal performance practice, if you will. If we play a Brahms symphony, we know it, we've done it dozens of times. We know the moments where you can really grab the audience, where this kind of magical connection can happen because we're familiar, we know that it's a great piece, we know, this piece now, I've done it a few times, there are moments like that as well. And what I try to do, and maybe it sounds lofty or over serious, but I really try to find the music in the music. And as I described to the orchestra, where I know it's important to grab the audience is that first soft low point where Magnus
Bar 34, you said.
I think it was, yeah. Thanks for paying attention.
You're welcome.
No, I was hoping that at least one person would react, and I guess I achieved at least that. No, seriously, the experience of hearing the piece in the beginning is shocking, and I think it's a good description of wet towel. That's perfect. You don't know what is going on. Suddenly there's this explosion of sound, and it sounds like, oh, and I mean this in the most respectful way, it sounds like, oh, here's one of these loud new pieces where it's just going to be noise the whole way through. And then, since most people are polite enough not to leave after the first 3 seconds, they continue to listen, and little by little, moments of clarity start emerging from this enormous, massive sound. And it subsides, and the moments of clarity become more evident. And then there's that soft moment, bar 34, where there's like a metallic, it's like just a sign, like bing, and it's quiet. And it feels like we've achieved a sort of still point. And it's so surprising, for me anyway, in terms of telling the story. It's like after all this unrecognizable, chaotic noise, to have just a little beacon there. And in performances, we've done it enough times now that I know if you can feel like people say, oh, what's that? Then you've got them, and you can hold them for the whole performance. That's one of those magical musical moments, and it really is. It is about managing the form. And interestingly, I think the more a performer has internalized the form, the easier it is for the audience to listen. You can tell.
Well, we've definitely noticed with how you've been rehearsing it. You know, we just also hear, by all due respect, we hear a lot of noise in our seats, and we're trying to protect our ears from the percussion. But when Alan points out, no, the trombones and the brass are going do-do-do-do-do instead of just, and then you tend to listen for these sounds, and the piece suddenly starts to make more sense. There's a lot of very clever things in there, I must say, Magnus.
Well, you have to rehearse it in a way that brings these things out, but also the ulterior motive is to get the orchestra behind that motivation. So you can really feel the difference. It sounds almost the same if it's just about right, but you can really tell if a performer is like, okay, it doesn't really matter if I play here or here. The intention becomes part of the message. And so one of the things I've tried to point out without being too heavy-handed or didactic is, okay, you know what? This matters. This is important. And then the focus of the orchestra, and I think you guys are amazing. It's brilliant what you do. It's really, to me it sounds great. But that's also because you guys are buying into it, and you're really playing it with intention.
I find it hard to believe that this piece was written in '85. I mean, it's quite a long time ago, and it still sounds so fresh and new, and the ideas also. Are you planning another big spectacle like this one?
I'm composing still.
No, I know that, but of course we know that. But I mean, this was what sort of catapulted you into the public eye, more or less.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's for a composer. When you look back to what you've been doing, I see it as a long learning process. Each work gets you into something which leads you hopefully further, and those years when I was working on craft was a wonderful opportunity in my life. So I had some windows open that I didn't have before, and in a way didn't have afterwards. Still, when I compare craft today to pieces I do, more recent pieces, even if the surface of them certainly and hopefully is different, I can feel still the same kind of pace underneath, the same striving for my temperament, the kind of structures, the kind of musical evolvement involved is very much on the same line. So let's hope there comes another opportunity to do a piece with this in a way extravaganza element to it, with the unusual things. I did after craft. I did work quite often with electronic music involved with orchestra, which is one of those paths where many things can still be done. So it's, you never know. That's of course the most ongoing element of being a composer. You never know where your experience will bring you.
Well, wherever it brings you, we're really looking forward to the next adventure with your music, and we're really looking forward to performing Kraft, bringing it back home to the Philharmonie. Thanks to both of you for a really exciting week playing this piece, and we're really looking forward to the performances, and we're hoping our global audience around the world will enjoy it on the digital concert hall as well. So thank you, and come back soon, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you.